Hello everyone and welcome back to WARNO for another patch preview, as a new patch is coming out next week and I have access to an alpha build version of it where I can show you the changes that are coming. Some of these changes might still be subject to change, but most of them should come to the game as is, and there's really a lot of them. There's a lot of new visual stuff, as you for example can see right now here. There is a new game mode, there is a new unit type, there's a good amount of extra new units in general, and a lot of balance changes, bug fixes, and performance improvements and crash fixes that Eugen has done over the last couple of weeks since the last patch. It has been a while, but we're back with a good amount of stuff. For example, the new Armory, where for the helicopters you also have a new helipad where you can move around in, and it's just not just the helipad but also the lighting that has changed here, and you actually can change that as well. There's now a hotkey which you can use to change the lighting in the Armory, and which lets you do a lot of cool looking screenshots. Sadly, you still don't have a turn off UI button for the Armory. Hopefully that should come eventually as well. But the other thing here is you have more filters as well, which are helpful. You have a division filter now, so that you can check out units of a specific division in the Armory as well. You don't have to go to the battle group thing to see that first. So yeah, helpful filter as well up here. And then let's look into the other changes. The biggest one is we now have destruction mode. Destruction mode is out of 3 maps. More maps for sure to come. A lot of them being worked upon. Good bit of by the map department. Currently we have 2 ways, 2 lakes, and vertigo. More are to come, but it's a really fun mode. There will be a video with it out as well right now, which you should be able to see. And yeah, then we also have a new unit type, which is to be found over here for all divisions. Every division has access to it. Heavy machine gun and grenade launchers. Not all divisions have grenade launchers, but all have some sort of heavy machine gun. For example, 50 cals and 7.6 millimeters. And they have 1,200 and 1,400 meters respectively, so some more range for infantry. Grenade launchers have 1,400 meters as well, and can be deployed in buildings. Are pretty helpful. Bit slower than normal infantry, so they can be overrun. They have some range limiters as well, but in general, really nice units. Nice addition to the arsenal. More choices to make. As I said, every division at least has one sort of them in them, and a lot of them have 1 or 2 or even 3 options available to them with these. Some even 4, I think. Some airborne divisions even 4 different choices there. So really cool. And yep, then other changes are 2 helicopters and autocannons. Helicopter autocannons and autocannons in general. Autocannons in general have been made more efficient against ground targets, where you deal a solid bit more damage to enemy infantry. And helicopter autocannons are part of it as well. They especially have gained more range. For example, the Apache now has 1,750 meter range. If you look at a Hind, it has 1,575 on the 23 millimeter. And on the Yak B 12mm it has 1,200 meter range, so they all can fight a bit further away now, which is quite helpful with the guns. And more importantly, 50 cal and 20mm have less range against helicopters, so like the M113 doesn't stun all the helicopters out of the sky anymore, which it did before, which was really annoying. And yeah, it made the M113 and or the T-55 with its 50 cal or its heavy machine gun on top, it's at 40mm, not way too good against helicopters and made helicopters way less useful. That has changed now, so helicopters should go up in efficiency once more with that, which is nice. And another change that has come is that infantry AT, the good launchers here, for example the one of the Spetsnaz, the OP, the RPG-29, have lost 10 accuracy. The RPG-29 fell from 70 to 60, and for example the Lord 80 went from 60 to 50, and the Apilas also went from 60 to 50. All the top end anti-tank launchers got lower availability there, and then also they fully standardized now all the ammunition over the normal infantry squadrons and their anti-tank rocket ammunition. For example, all RPGs in normal infantry squadrons now have 6, and all disposable launchers have 4, like the Apilas and so on. And same for ATGMs. Medis now have 6, same with the Dragons and Dragon 2s. All of them are now 6 launchers. Specialized teams like the Spetsnaz OP still have 12 rockets, but they also went up in price for it. They went up to 40 point cost now. And the normal Spetsnaz, by the way, also went up to 70, so it's not as cost efficient as it had been before. And SPGs went up to 15 rounds. Same to their self-propelled versions that had 15 rounds before as well. So they can fire a bit more for longer now as well. All kind of the recoilless rifles, SPG-9s and M67s, I think, as well. So that is quite helpful. And then we come to the buffs to specific factions, where we gotta go, or changes to specific factions, where we started with the British, because they needed buffs the most likely, out of all factions. And we start with the first armored, where we go to the tank tab to show you the Chelly is more affordable now, and only costs 290 points now, 10 points cheaper. Style might be a slight bit too costly, maybe could go down to 285 or so, but it's for sure a nice step in the right direction. Yeah, a more affordable version of this, and it's a good unit. And then you see another unit here, the Rover Milan Para, which is Para, showing you that it's a paratrooper with forward deployment, as together with that, other paratroopers made it in as well. The Terrier Para and Para Leaders and the Para Milan made it in here. So a good amount of forward deployment for the first British armored as well, which together with the 7.6mm gives you a lot of options in this infantry tab. Like, you could go either with a good amount of forward deployment, with cheap forward deployment units. They're not the best. Yeah, these are not the best forward deployment infantry, but they're decent enough, and you get a lot of them. Or you could, for example, go with the gun groups with a warrior and spam them out for being cheaper warriors now that the autocannons have been improved. Yeah, so that is an option as well. But you are limited in your slots, so you have to be somewhat careful there. Yep, that is the change to this British formation. And then the other British formation got a good amount of buffs as well. The second British infantry, first of all, in the infantry tab, got cheaper Terriers, got one MG as well, and SAS got cheaper as well. So 2 of their infantry units that were pretty lackluster before are now pretty cost efficient. Or like, the SAS were not lackluster, but like, they are now really nice for that price, giving you a Stinger 84 and a good amount of firepower with good amount of hit points as well, with a forward deployment, which you really need in this division. So that is quite nice. And then the Terrier now are a nice, cheap, spammable infantry unit, as they don't have the best weapon loadout, but they are now for 40 points instead of 50 points. way better as spammable infantry squadrons, which is really good. And then in the tank depth, your M48s and your challengers got cheaper. M48s in general got the M48A2 got cheaper to 70 points, which is nice. Good bit more cost efficient on that level, as they are relatively low end tanks, especially thanks to their 5 frontal armor and their low accuracy. So them going down to 70 was quite needed, even though their gun is pretty decent and their rate of fire is good. But yeah, the frontal armor is a big deficit. And then the other change is in the AA tab, where you can see the rapier, track rapier and rapier going cheaper, because they lost a bit of range against aircraft and they lost a bit of accuracy, because they're, Eugen was like, yeah, they're not using radar, but they had radar accuracy. So they still don't have radar, but they're cheaper now, and they still have their amazing anti-helicopter range, so they're more dedicated anti-helicopter units now. But you got a radar version as well of the rapier, as you obviously see that it can be used in radar mode, and this is the radar mode version. You get 2 cards of these. The normal rapier also got a big availability buff, and this one has good accuracy. It comes with 65% base accuracy and an aircraft range of 4,200. So you now have a good range AA piece in this division, which is really helpful, because your air tab itself is not that great to kill enemy aircraft. The Phantom is really not that amazing, but having a good AA piece now for helping out is killing off enemy airplanes with the rapier that still can get killed by artillery and so on, but this is a really nice unit. So, nice improvement here to the rapier, and a nice new unit here. Bit more variety in this anti-air tab as well. Next division is Territorial Kommando Süd, which got a new artillery unit, or not, got an addition of an artillery unit. The M110A2 has made it into this division now, so that is quite nice. And yeah, this is a nice artillery tab now. Before it was pretty lackluster because we didn't have any self-propelled things, and also obviously the M48 being cheaper here is really helpful as well. The P4 Milan got more expensive because it was way too cheap for being such a spammable ATGM thing. It went 5 points up from 35 to 40 points. Yeah, normal M48 is still at 55 points, but yeah, we will come to see that this is still fine nowadays with the new patch. Should be more viable as well. Other cheap tanks got changed as well. And then the other division that got a major buff, or got some buffs, is the 11th Parachutist, which got its tank become somewhat useful. Also the VLR A Milan now costs the same as the P4 Milan. Both have forward deployment. One has more availability, one has better stealth. The other one has more missiles and slightly more hit points. So it's a interesting trade now that you can do between these two. I would still tend towards the P4 Milan, but the VLRA Milan has its reason to be there as well, with 8 missiles. But the bigger part is that the ERC 90 Sagai now costs 80 points and has mediocre stealth. So you can use it for ambushes better, and it's a good bit more cost efficient with 80 points. So 2 nice buffs here. It's still not a tank you want to use for frontline trading. Like with 80 points, it's still not cheap. With one frontline armor, it still dies to everything that looks at it weirdly. But its gun is decent. It's not an AMX 10 RC, so you shouldn't expect that kind of performance out of it, as it also doesn't have the good optics of very good optics of that tank. But it's still really helpful for defensive purposes now with mediocre stealth, which is nice for this division, which is not the greatest in defensive play. You get your MGs here as well. And then in the air tab, Your seatplanes now have better ECM. The Jaguar seat here has 50, and the Jaguar seat 2 has 40 ECM, so they're a bit more survivable. Seat still is not the most amazing. They haven't done any major rework there yet, but I hope that's still coming, as seat in general is still a bit weird, but at least a nice buff to these two seatplanes, which make them a solid bit more useful. And then some other units on the pack side that changed were for the Germans and the French in the ATAP. The Roland 2 is cheaper now because it lost accuracy, but it also, once more, is not tracked by radar systems anymore. It's not hit by seed anymore, so it's the difference between Roland 2 and Roland 3 is back again. Just that the Roland 2 this time also pays the price of accuracy versus the radar version. But it means you don't have to micro it against seed anymore. You can leave it on. And enemies have to be careful even when they use seed against the Germans. And then the other unit that got heavily reworked in some shape or form is the A10, which now has way better agility, or like a bit better agility, and especially better targeting system. Before it had it felt really clunky when you re-targeted units and so on, and it feels way smoother now. So the A10, a really good unit now, and its Avenger gun is also really strong now, as it is one of the autocannons that got buffed, and that is dealing significant damage now to everything out there. As this is a really nice thing to use now. A10 is a lot of fun and a big danger to everyone who is playing against it. As on the other side, let's have a look onto the pact, where this time around it's a bit more nerfs than buffs. And we have a couple of new units there as well, but it's mostly nerfs. For example, we go into KDA. We already looked at the Spetsnaz OP and the Spetsnaz nerf. In this division they are now also locked to max veterancy. You can't cheat yourself to more per card here. And yeah, 70 points for these, 40 points for these, so these are a good bit more expensive now. And then their T55s are now more expensive as well. The T55 Ace are 55 points, and if we have a look onto the T55 AM2s, these are now 85 points, the AM2Bs 95 points, and the T76 are 135 points and 160 points now, the M versions. The normal version is still the old price, but a bug with it got fixed where it could fire its HE rounds 1,275 meters. It only fires them at 2,100 meters now as well. So only these ones have the extra range in general. For now, the Flammenpanzer TO55 still costs 45 points, but that might be still subject to change till the version comes around. Yeah, then ZSU on the East German side, and KDA also lost a bit of accuracy, as it didn't make sense that such an old vehicle had such a good accuracy, and also it lost range against aircraft. So it should still be pretty dangerous against ground targets, should be still relatively dangerous against helicopters, but it shouldn't be such an aircraft killer anymore as it was before, which didn't make much sense for the price, for like the oldness of this equipment and the price the unit comes in. So that should be a nice change. And then for the Soviets, in the recon tab, there is a new unit, the Razvedka Saperi, which is a Razvedka with TNT that you can bring in both 39th and 79th. And the Motor Razvedka, just like the Motor Aufklärer, is now 60 points instead of 70 points. So that makes good sense as well. They were a bit too pricey. And yeah, so that is a nice change here. And then in the air tab, you have some things as well, like the MiG-29 only Oh no, not the MiG-29. The MiG-31 only comes in one card now, in 79th. The MiG-27 gun now is really efficient, as you can see. Good penetration. So this is now the hunter gun of the Soviets and the packed side. These guns now can shred other tanks and armored vehicles. On the other hand, the Su-25 can't do that anymore. Its penetration now is 1. Its gun is not as deadly anymore, but the planes got cheaper again for it. So they're not as deadly against armored targets anymore. So it's not as much of a beast anymore that just runs down all your tanks, because that didn't quite make sense with its gun. Meanwhile, the MiG-27 now can be interesting, especially the seed version, because you can kind of use it as a hitter and a pin down unit at the same time. And if you see an AA unit, you can make a run on it, but pinning it down with your seat and like having the enemy turn it off. So that can be quite scary now in 79th. But yeah, all the MiG-27s also got a bit more expensive for it, but the gun is really, really nice now on these guys. And yeah, that is basically it. I don't know, one more new unit in the helicopter tab that I missed is the Mi-8 MT for the 4th and the 7th with gunpots, which is quite a nice unit as well. And then in the recon tab, the Mi-24K now costs 180 points. So that is a way more reasonable price for this helicopter as well. 0 ECM, yeah, 180 points for this helicopter is a nice change here as well. And those are the changes in here. We will have a look onto the in-game changes with playing a bit of a destruction game and yeah, talking about all that stuff there, because there's a good amount of changes there as well. So have an eye open for that video. I hope you enjoyed this video here. If you did, consider leaving a like. And yeah, I hope you're as hyped for the patch as I am, because I'm really, really hyped for it. And I see you around. Bye bye, and see you in the next one.